So let's talk about something you've probably heard of, the silver economy. On the surface, it sounds great, right? A shiny new market for global capitalism. But when you look a little closer, you start to see a really critical question. What is the actual value of a long life in a society that's obsessed with productivity? We're all living longer than ever before, which is an amazing achievement, but it's being treated less like a social victory and, well, more like a business opportunity.
And just to be clear, this isn't some abstract, far-off future we're talking about. The scale of this is absolutely staggering. The United Nations projects that by the year 2050, which is not that far away, 1 out of every 4 people on this entire planet will be over the age of 60. This isn't just some niche demographic. It's a massive, irreversible global shift that is going to completely redefine our societies. Okay, so what is the silver economy, officially? The textbook definition says it's the market tailored for people over 60. You know, the term really popped up in the 2010s as a solution to a growing problem. We're living longer, but our workforces are shrinking. And in classic capitalism fashion, the system saw a challenge and immediately turned it into a business plan.
And the amount of money involved here, it's just mind-boggling. The European Union alone estimates this market will be worth over 5.7 trillion euros to its GDP by 2025. When you're talking about numbers that big, aging stops being just a biological process. It becomes a consumer category, a golden target for advertisers, promising huge growth even when other markets are slowing down.
But this is where it gets complicated. This is where the paradox really starts to show itself. Is this huge economic boom actually empowering older adults, or is it, trapping them in a kind of beautiful gilded cage?
Right, so you might be thinking, if we've got a multi-trillion euro market creating all these new products and services for a growing population, what could possibly be the problem? It sounds like a win-win situation. But the real issue here isn't economic, it's philosophical.
This quote from the sociologist Jigomot Bauman just gets right to the heart of it. Our entire culture is obsessed with youth. We value speed, disruption, the next big thing. And in a world like that, the elderly are often seen as obsolete. They're a problem to be managed, not a resource to be valued.
And here's the brilliant, if cynical, twist in all this. The very same system that discards the elderly then turns around and welcomes them back with open arms, but only as consumers. They're sold anti-aging creams, premium health insurance, special cruises. It's this perfect economic loop. First, you create the insecurity of being obsolete, and then you sell them the solution to that insecurity.
And believe me, this isn't a new idea. Thinkers have been warning us about this for years. You've got Karl Marx, who argued that capitalism has a way of turning life itself into something you can buy and sell. The sociologist Ulrich Beck talked about our risk society, where the insecurity of getting older becomes your own individual problem to solve. And Pierre Bourdieu's work shows how, in a culture obsessed with youth, your social value, your symbolic capital, just fades as you age.
So how does all this philosophical tension actually play out in the real world? Let's take a look at how different countries are actually dealing with this massive demographic shift, because the world is pretty clearly divided on this.
You can really boil it down to 2 completely different models. On one side, you have what we can call collective planning. In countries like Finland, Germany, or Japan, aging is treated as a shared responsibility, and it's managed through big universal systems. But on the other side, you've got individual responsibility, where your well-being in old age is pretty much directly tied to how much you personally saved and what kind of career you had.
And this comparison really shows the real-world consequences. Let's look at Finland versus Chile. Finland's model is built on the idea of universal rights. The state's job is to guarantee protection, and that leads to social innovation, like state-supported care in the community. Now, in Chile's model, it's all based on individual contribution. The state's role is basically just to oversee private savings. The outcome? Constant budget adjustments and an experience of what's been called structural solitude, where people are pretty much left to face the challenges of aging all alone.
And if we take a closer look at Chile, you can see just how deeply this model is baked into the system. Their individual savings system was set up way back in 1981. And yeah, there have been waves of reforms trying to add a little more solidarity into the mix, but the core principle has never, ever changed. Your security in old age is ultimately up to you.
Which brings us to the fundamental question that's really at the center of this whole thing. We're not just talking about economics or policy here, we're on a moral battlefield. Is living a long life a business opportunity, or is it a fundamental human right?
So the real challenge isn't about creating a better market. It's about completely redefining what we, as a society, value.
First, we have to recognize that we're all interdependent. We all need care at some point in our lives. Second, we have to ensure both economic redistribution and social recognition. And ultimately, it's about reclaiming an ethics of care from the cold, hard logic of the market.
This all brings us back to one of the oldest questions in philosophy, one that Aristotle asked: what is a good life? Is a life good just because it's long? Or does a good life require security and recognition and a sense of purpose? It feels like we've gotten really good at extending our existence, but maybe we've forgotten about the art of coexistence.
In the end, it really feels like we're facing a pretty clear choice. Is the future of our longer lives going to be just another market where dignity is only available to those who can afford to buy it? Or are we going to decide that a long, secure life is a fundamental human right for every single one of us?
As the philosopher Walter Benjamin once said, every era dreams of the next one. Maybe our dream should be for something as simple and as truly revolutionary as this: a world where we can all grow old without guilt and without a credit card.